Welcome back to another episode of Paint Society. I'm here today with Pedro, Scorpion Paint, and we're gonna lay down some beautiful red paint on this 91 Acura NSX. Don't overthink it, it's just paint. And if you missed part one, well, Pedro got everything completely sanded down and he primed the areas that where the paint was just peeling. This car has been painted over a few times in single stage in a few areas, so make sure you check out part one before part two when we lay down the paint. And what Pedro's doing now is we are getting the surface ready and decontaminate it using a solvent prep. And now the whole car is sanded in 400. Now you might notice some areas that look a little funny, like they're through to the paint underneath. If it is sanded with 400 and that's all you did is smooth it out, then this is a perfect candidate for a sealer application. This whole car will be sealed off, and sealer basically is a thinned out primer that does not need to be sanded, and that's just what we're doing. Now you might ask, why do we use primer in some areas? Well, that is where the paint was completely flaking off and we needed a good surface for our paint to lay on and to go over those areas and repair them. So you can see exactly where we primered the fenders along with the hood, the trunk. Of course, the bumper had a lot of chipping, the wing, and then we have our mirrors that are ready to go. And what's also awesome about today's video is we're testing out Sagola's DVR Aqua air cap on the Sagola 4600 Xtreme. It's designed for water-based. We're going to be using it today for solvent. It works great as well for solvent, and I can't wait to put it to the test when we go to spray that base coat. And that is the Sagola we're talking about. This is the 4600 Xtreme Aqua 1.2. That's the air cap we're going to be using, and it also has the digital regulator right there, as well as the digital readout. We'll also be using for Clearcoat, or we're going to stick with the Sagola, the 4600 Trophy Truck Edition. Now we're going to be putting sealer down first, and for that we'll be using the Iwata W400 WBX. Now any of these could put down sealer, but we're going to keep them strictly for base and clear so we don't cross-contaminate. And that's the sealer all mixed up, 28 ounces, 1.3 in here. We'll see how long or how far it gets us. So let's head into the booth. And we're gonna start with the sealing on the car first. We'll see how far it covers. If we do one coat, we'll see if that's enough. Basically what we wanna do is we wanna make sure that we have a nice uniform surface for our paint to lay down. And sealer just helps to bridge the gap between the two colors. So unless we were not doing it complete, we probably wouldn't do it something just like this. But it really gonna help out when you don't need the prime, like we mentioned to you earlier. And it really gives you a good idea of, hey, you know, how does everything look? Am I ready for my base? Am I ready to put down my next coat? It is really the perfect substrate, and I've said this so many times, for your base coat. Anyone that's sprayed sealer before, all right, will agree with me, all right? So what we're gonna do is just gonna go around the whole entire car, and then we'll finish up all of the rest of our parts. After the sealer is all laid down, this is the flashing stage. And what flashing generally means is, well, it's drying enough for the next coat. And that could be between 10 to 20 to 15 minutes, in and around there. And right now, you can tell just by looking at it, it's got that flat look to it, right? Once it's got that flat look, go ahead and touch it somewhere where it doesn't matter. If it's pretty much smooth like it is here, then it's ready for your base. You don't need to sand this at all. If you have an imperfection, sand the base coat, don't sand your sealer. We have all the other parts that are ready to go, along with the wing spoiler, the bumper, and our trunk and hood still flashing off. Let's go in there and get some red paint mixed up. So the color we're mixing up is Formula Red. We're gonna mix up 80 ounces. Red doesn't cover too well, but we should have enough, and hopefully a little bit left over if we need to do any extra pieces on the car. This color is actually going to be a black, just a little bit of black. You can see all that we'll do is just slightly darken up the color a little bit. So basically, it's not like we take one of these colors off the wall and that's automatically it. It's just like if you go to Home Depot and you want to get a color mixed up for your house, it's going to be pretty much the same thing. The next one is what, actually white. So the way that the system works is it's going to tell you exactly how much to mix up, and it's all weighed on a scale. And then the last toner will be like a burgundy red to give it the proper balance of toners. And then from there, what we'll do is they'll mix in the reducers. Are you going with the extra slow or regular or slow today? Extra slow. Yeah, get a little bit smoother job. It's yeah. We want to keep everything open, meaning we want to keep it all smooth, and we're going to be going around the whole booth. By the time Pedro does the car and all the parts, he's just going to go recircle around 2 or 3 times until it's completely covered. So it looks like we're ready to go. I'm going to actually give the Sagola a little bit of a review. I'm going to use it. Pedro's going to use it, and we're going to see how well it lays down that base coat. Perfect. All right, we can see that Sagola really laid down the paint. One coat, it did an amazing job. So soft, so smooth to the touch. It's looking like we're only gonna need one more good coat. You can see how much the sealer just really helps. You wouldn't be able to do this if there was no sealer underneath. I guarantee you that. All right, so we're going around the car, looking at it, looking over it. Pedro's over there. He's using the Sagola to finish up. That Aqua cap just puts it down really, really smooth. Really, really nice. I mean, look at the finish of that. Once Clear hits that, it's gonna look phenomenal. So we'll kick it into high gear, speed things up, and lay down that second coat. And just like that, it's all completely based. 2 coats was enough for this since we did use the sealer. And I gotta say, we really, really did love using the Sagola, the 4600 with the Aqua cap. It really was a workhorse for so many parts that we do have. I mean, take a look at it. This is what you want your base to look. It is still flashing, but their base should look somewhat sheen, should have a little satin look to it. And it should look super, super smooth. So when a Clear hits it, what happens is, well, it just lays on there beautifully, and you're able to retain your gloss longer. You're able to have a smoother finish with less issues in the clear coat. So, you know, a lot of people think I can't lay down my base right. Well, it really has to do with laying down your undercoats first properly. And you can see that our lights are off, and we're gonna check it out. We're using a sunlight gun, and what this is gonna do is it's gonna show us in all those tough areas, do we see any of that sealer? Is there any spots that we missed? I mean, just by looking at it, I'm looking at it and I'm seeing that it looks covered. Sometimes in these areas that are hard to get to, you wanna check those out, because the next time you would be able to see any missed areas is after it's all done and when it's pulled out into the sun. So we're just generally going around checking, doing a quality control check, making sure everything is a-okay. What do you say, Pedro? I think it's looking...
I think it's fine.
I think it's looking for clear. If we don't need to put another coat on, then don't do it. You know what I mean? Check over all of our areas, our hood, our trunk. You also want to check the edges. A lot of these places just really get missed because it's just not our normal pattern when we're painting. Over the trunk lid is looking pretty covered as well. And I would say, I said this about 3 or 4 times already in the video, if we didn't seal, we would see spots in our areas where the primer just was not covered, because that primer is so porous. Once it's been sanded down, it's like a sponge, whereas that sealer, it does not get sanded, so it creates a barrier that the paint can just lay on top of instead of soaking down into. And when you have a sealer, well, you're just gonna cover it like we did 2 coats in red, kind of unheard of, but we did it here. So I think that's gonna wrap things up for here. We're ready to mix up some clear coat and get spraying. All right, and we're gonna be ready to spray our clear coat. We're using our Lesonal universal clear coat, everything slow. And what that's gonna do is really help to keep things open, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna knock down 2 beautiful coats of clear coat. You could do up to 3. If you're gonna do 3, you wanna wait much longer than you did between the first and second coat. And with these coats, I would say at least 10 to 15 minutes in between coats if it's a slower clear like this. Give it some time to tack up. Since we're gonna be going around the whole car and then going around to each panel, that time, that flash time is going to start from the moment that Pedro pulls the trigger, all right? So it'll take a good 10 minutes, I would say, to get around all these parts. So by the time we're done, then we're probably gonna be most likely getting ready to lay down that second coat. So without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and show you the gun we're using. and that is the sister gun, the 4600. It's got a 1.3 in it. Pedro's never used it before. This gun moves, so I can't wait to see how he feels about it, and if he's going to continue to use them on his own cars here at the dealership. So let's get rolling. Pedro's going to start in the front of the car and move the same fashion, just like we did with the sealer, the base on the clear, same exact thing. Pedro, let's get it. Let's see when we go to spray. We'll start with the arches first, and then we're going to move along now. He'll never stop right on that gap. What he'll do is he'll always move past that gap. Now, this particular gun does put a lot of material out. So you do have to move a little bit quicker than most guns because you don't want to catch yourself with a run or anything like that. So you can see how he's stopping in the middle of the panel right here, but he's moving all the way to the quarter panel, making sure to extend his clear all the way past any of the gaps. We'll move along to the quarter panel here, and they'll carry on to the rest of the car. And that's gonna wrap things up for the first coat here. Now what Pedro's gonna do on that second coat is gonna move a little bit slower, although it's gonna be in a time-lapse fast speed motion. You wanna move a little bit slower and really lay down that clear, and I'll show you what the difference is. It's gonna go from a little bit of dry peel to a beautiful shine. So let's hit the tunes and let's get it. And just like that, 2 coats are down, and look at that shine. Beautiful. If you could only see it in person and see the depth and see how beautiful it looks, it came out phenomenal. All you need is 2 coats, but like I said, if you want to do that third, I would give it a good 25 minutes maybe to allow it to really flash, maybe 30, and then you could lay down a 3rd coat if you needed to. But at this point, it's good enough. There might be a couple pieces of dirt here and there that need to be buffed, but that's nothing out of the ordinary. That is a part of every paint job. There's always going to be some wet sand and buffing that will incur with every single job. But I gotta say, Pedro really did a good job, phenomenal job, breaking everything down and get everything where it needed to be. And really happy with the way that the Sagolas really sprayed on this one. Well, the car is all assembled and it looks awesome. I'm about to show you guys. Special thanks to Pedro from Scorpion Paint, so make sure you guys subscribe over there. It's been a great 2-part series. And this is Brian and Pedro from Paint Society reminding you, don't overthink it.
You just paint.
We'll see you guys on the next one.